Who wants to do the intro this time?
Whomever.
I mean, I can introduce us.
Yeah,
I
we
can
can-
do that. That's
Who else wants to?
Aw.
Who else do we have?
I don't know. I'm trying to think back on that moment where Eric and I ceased being comrades and started being fucking nemesis. And was
It
it?
was the moment it became funny.
Oh, did something happen on on the Sabaton trip? Did something go weird?
I mean, isn't that what you want on a trip
I
like
mean,
that?
well-
Is for something
well,
to go weird?
Something did happen. Well, something didn't happen. You didn't respond to my advances.
That's because I was too busy about to beat the shit of this 45-year-old gun.
That's true.
No,
God, that bitch.
hell hath no fury like an Eric scorned.
Eric didn't have to fucking deal with it. He was behind me.
I can't help you with that.
God, that woman. Never been more fucking angry at someone at a mosh pit before.
I mean, is that story time?
Okay, so back in it was either 2018 or 2019. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
It was 19.
yeah, Eric and Mike Ledoux, and I drove up to Baltimore to go see Hammerfall and Sabaton at the soundstage up there, and
Yeah.
we got there. We got there fairly early. Got in a good place in line, and we got. We found our standing positions real early on, and it was damn near right up on stage. There was one person in front of us, but we were right there up front, and
I've been at shows early like that where you kind of get to pick your standing space pretty easily.
Yeah, it was great. We were able to get our merch that we wanted early on and still get into our spots. Everything was great. Well, then, during
Coronation event, right?
I don't think you've gone to any shows with me, but usually when I'm standing there, we're cutting up and making friends with everybody, and so we had a little group kind of shooting the shit and having some fun, and this woman was so she was all of 5'1", if that, and she was noticeably older, not unattractive or anything, but she's noticeably older. And she kept making this big fucking deal about how old she was. And can you believe it? I'm 45 years old, blah, 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 and I've got a boyfriend, and he's 23, and he fucks me all night long, and he's got a big old dick, and he's just sitting there just smiling like a big dumb.
Oh boy.
I got a big dick. and so it's
on your dick. You just shut up and let it happen, man.
yeah, I'm it's obnoxious, but whatever. Not a problem per se at this point. Well, then when the show starts, she keeps trying to push her way up in front of me. And well, that's not really that much of a problem by itself because she's super short and I'm a head taller than her, so it doesn't bother me. But what bothers me is that she's being super aggressive about it and trying to push these two girls that were already ahead of us, right on the little gate up at the front, the little fence or whatever, and she's trying to push them out of the way, and she's trying to tell her boyfriend to make them move, and then she tried to grab me and force me into this weird confrontation, and I can't even remember exactly what she said to me, but I remember getting I went from 0 to 60 immediately. I was fucking angry at her. I was like, get the fuck away from me and get the fuck out of this circle. And I pushed her back away, and I would not let her in front of me. So she kept trying to get her boyfriend to do something about it, and he just was not he wasn't gonna do anything about it. Like he wasn't gonna start a fight, especially not a fight with someone who at least had 1.5 people backing him up. And
He's a
you are
lover, not a fighter.
Apparently.
Oh, baby, I don't want to hit him. What if he hurts my dick? My big old dumb dick. And then, like, I thought that kind of was the end of it. Like, I said, no, you're not getting in front of me, and your boyfriend's not gonna hurt me, so move the fuck on. Well, she did not move the fuck on. So for the remainder of Hammerfall and into Sabaton even, she kept trying to, like, she kept yelling at me and like trying to like get other people to like come and like remove me. No one was having it. Eventually they got like another friend of theirs to come over, and his entire plan was to be wholly more obnoxious than any other human has the right to be. Like during the middle of songs or when the band's like talking in between songs, he would just start screaming things like "I wipe my own ass," like in our ears, like trying as hard as he can to annoy us to make us walk away. Eventually, I just kind of like grabbed him and like looked him in the eyes and I was like, "You need to stop. We're not moving." Like I wasn't like, well, that makes it sound like I was way more aggressive than I was. I wasn't. Like I just kind of like, dude, stop. Like you're just making it not fun for anybody, and you're still not going to get your way. Meanwhile, the short little lady is still screaming at us. Eventually, they fucked off, but like, but for a solid hour, they were the most annoying humans I think I have ever met at a concert.
I'm glad you qualified with at a concert, because
the worst / best thing I had happen at a concert was we were at some show at the Virginia Beach Amphitheater. I think it might have been Leonard Skinner, I think. And this girl got falling down drunk before, like, not even like before the opening band even set up. She was falling down drunk.
Pre-gamed a little too hard.
So she was there. She was all of about maybe 26, which at the time I was still in college, so my brother couldn't have been more than about 17. And she decided she just wanted a piece of Colin, and that was it. And like, so she was incoherent, couldn't even talk. She just kept. I can remember the noise she made. Kept making this noise. It was kind of, and then trying to kiss him.
I mean, that's normally how I do it.
My brother has both hands up and is just flapping them emphatically, like, no, 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 please God, no.
Yeah, that's also how mine normally end. Yes.
Yeah.
So
she's just doing her best JoJo's impersonation, man.
basically, so she her friends kept pulling her back, and then she would escape from them and run over. Finally, her boyfriend came back from wherever the fuck he was, and he wasn't mad at Colin. He wasn't really mad at her. He was just like, "Oh, you." Was his whole attitude like this was completely normal behavior for her? Right?
Oh, just doing thought things again.
Oh, I sure hope she touches my pee-pee.
He would pick her up and hold her for a while, and then she would get loose and go right back to my brother. Finally, he sat her down on a lawn chair and sat in her lap to keep her from getting up.
Well,
and then we played the rest of our show.
I mean, that achieves something, I guess.
And then she puked on his back.
Well, you know what feels better than getting puked on the back is another episode of the Argel Talk podcast. Welcome back, everybody.
Is this a two-wheeled self-propulsion device? Because that was a great segue.
Oh, baby, you know it always. It's the quality you've come to love and appreciate of this cast. But,
I mean, I assume I've never actually listened to it.
I mean, one would hope. But welcome back, everybody. I'm Jake, and I'm here with Ben, Eric, and Gray once again. How are you guys all doing?
Oh man, that just Just fantastic. Just super duper. How about you?
I'm doing great. I've got some games in the past couple weeks. One of them was even with Eric, so we can talk about that a little bit in hobby time if you want to.
Oh, we
Uh,
could.
but yeah, it's been going great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so on to hobby time.
So with that said, moving
Well, the
on.
extraneous bullshit out of the way.
All the small talk.
Yeah. Get the
Yeah.
foreplay. Let's get to it.
Okay, well, okay, then get to it, Gray. What have you been working on hobby-wise?
Hobby wise, the continued slog through my Crimson Fists. I have painted 25, like 43 models this week, something stupid, I think, at this
Holy
point.
shit. Well done.
So I painted up a 2,000 point list to play tomorrow against a buddy of mine for ninth ed game.
Um,
I'm actually
I
gonna-
I really appreciate your sacrifice and you doing some community service like that. Just putting yourself
Well-
out there and just helping the differently abled.
well, I'm going to adapt one of the heresy missions I've played. I'm going to adapt it for ninth ed play. So
That's good. I mean, that
if you're familiar with what is the ambush one, where the defender starts in like a 12-inch circle in the middle, and then the other guy gets both table
Yeah.
ends.
man,
We're
that
gonna
is such
play
a
that.
rough deployment.
I mean,
So
That is a
how
rough
are you gonna
deployment.
adapt that to 9th edition with the absolute victory point bloat?
So the way I adapted it was I said if so defender starts in the middle, the other attacker gets both table edges. The defender gets like 10 victory points for everything he can get to one of the 2 table edge deployment zones. Every unit he can get there, right? He gets 10 for every, and then a continuing 10 for every turn that unit stays alive in those zones, right?
Oh, that's fair.
The
You just
approach
make more big numbers. That makes sense.
yeah. Because victory points in ninth is just the same thing as victory points in heresy. They just added a 0 on the end of
Yeah,
it.
you just get 1,000 of them.
Right.
Pretty much.
And so then the other player gets, 10 points for every unit he kills. And then, he gets an extra. If he kills everything, he gets like an extra like 60 or something. That's how you kind of balance out the fact that the guy who's defending makes points for living. You know what I mean?
That deployment map is nowhere near as painful in ninth ed as it is in the Age of Darkness rule set.
Yeah, I played against Rich on that. It was awful.
Oh yeah, it does depend on what sort of like what points value and like what armies you're playing. But like when the first time I ever played it was against Mike actually, and I was terrified because I had a number of tanks and a number of artillery pieces like rapiers, and
Mhm.
you're in this circle, so you can have like enemies 360 degrees all around you, and most of those weapons can only fire in the direction that they're pointed, so it makes deployment and your movement real weird, and that's one of the bonuses of that sort of deployment. But yeah, it's a lot less prohibitive in the ninth ed setting, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Let us know how that pans out.
wasn't that one of the? Sorry, Gray.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we made a further stipulation that we weren't going to bring any tanks to the fight. We're going to play kind of Centurion style.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
So make sense for being stuck in a circle.
I was gonna say, wasn't that? Are you referring to Gray specifically talking about playing Rich? Are you referring to the Call to Arms event? Did you or was that something different that you were talking about?
No,
Just
I
like
played him at the house here. I've known Rich since like 2007 or 2008.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Because I have a funny story about that about that deployment map from Call to Arms.
Oh yeah.
It was this narrative event that Ben was running at this local convention that he usually does. Fortunately, it hasn't happened the past couple years, but I can still remember fondly from the past past events. And I think that was like the finale of the narrative event where it was like the loyalists were on the back foot and they were getting ambushed by the traitors, and so they had that ambush, isolation deployment map. And I was playing Charles with his Night Lords,
Oh lordy.
and he's like, I don't think you're gonna seize, so I'm just gonna go ahead and deploy like you're not gonna seize. We all know, yes, we all know what happened next.
I can see what little bit of joy ever has crossed his face just sinking out of it.
If you go frame by frame, you can pinpoint the exact moment his heart rips in two.
Exactly.
Gosh.
But how
Hey,
about
Charles is a good player, though. He's tough to beat.
Oh yeah, no, he's excellent
He's
player.
cocky. He's cocky as shit, and it's the problem is it's completely deserved because he will more than likely beat you if you play him. He wins a lot.
Then I shall thank my lucky stars. I have a 100% win rate against him.
well,
Yeah,
so
that's
I
actually
mean,
pretty rare.
the conclusion of
yeah,
that
yeah.
funny story is I got addition bleed and fucked up my rules and failed a 2-inch charge that I didn't need to fail because I thought I had to be outside of 2 inches because I thought this
Ugh.
was 8th ed for some reason.
Nope.
Rip.
So, fucking rip.
Womp and womp.
Exactly. Dude, I was so hyped. Like, I was like, man, I'm going to fucking gank the fuck out of Sevatar. He's going to get ass blasted. This is going to be fucking great. And then I was like, oh, well, I have to stay outside of 2 inches, right? Yeah, okay, that's a thing.
Man, that is one of the hardest
You
things
never
about.
correct me if you get that wrong too.
Like that's why I like playing like the way that I play my games and the way that I run my events. Like they're a bit more narratively focused, not like dick kickers all the time. Like I've got so many different editions of the rules, like for Warhammer and for so many other miniatures games, just stuck in my head. Like I get real confused sometimes.
Let me tell you what a big dick kicker was coming back to Warhammer after playing. I took a break and did War Machine for like 6
Oh.
years.
Yeah.
That was an enormous kick in the nuts to come back to.
Yeah, trying to figure out my Dreadnought's rat and mat scores. Yeah, no, just totally.
I'm like, where's my focus? Fuck,
Man,
focus,
no.
reroll, no one, please.
Hey, what HQ did you take? You mean my Warcaster? No, I mean your fucking HQ, you plebeian.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking animal.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jake, what sort of hobby update do you have?
Well, so Remembrature's Retreat is putting on a blind doubles event at the beginning of November, where basically you come with a 1,500 point list, and you get paired. Each round, you get paired randomly with another doubles partner, and then you play games like that. And that sounded like a lot of fun to me. So I've been working on.
That does sound fun.
Yeah, like I love events like that where it's kind of like random for the sake of randomness and kind of silly and not meant to be taken seriously, even though I feel like it's going to be, but who knows. But I've been building the last couple things and getting them ready to get painted for my Luna Wolves, so I can bring my fully painted 1,500 points for that and have some fun there. Which is all I've got left. Was I built 5 following last week. I built 5 recon marines using the Mordathan kit that got all the Raven Guard stuff filed off of it and gap filled and everything. Built 3 more Combi Plasma marines. Cleaned and assembled Malagurst. And then I need to finish painting all that, and then a Rhino and a Termite, and then I'll have my 1,500 point list. So I've been working on that. So yeah,
Nice.
also got a few games in recently, which is definitely a refreshing change of pace for the vast majority of the past couple years. First game I had was last week with Eric, Matt, and Jack. We did our own doubles, and Eric can certainly talk about this a little bit too. But it was a fun time. I got to put my wolves on the table in like a substantial capacity for the first time. Played with Matt's Demons against Eric and Jack with their World Eaters. And nutshell takeaway point from that game is Just Aaron are fucking scary as all shit.
Just Aaron are really good.
They
They got stuck in there.
yeah, they kind of dropped right in front of both World Eater armies and kind of made both armies like bounce off of them. I mean, they died, but they bounced also.
Yeah, it took 2 assault squads to remove them entirely.
Was it a 5-man or 10-man unit?
5.
Ooh.
With
Yeah,
with a warmonger who also continued to like be a 1-man army for like 2 more
he did
turns.
more, I feel, than the Justarin actually did.
Yeah, I mean, well, because you guys knew that I was going to be deep striking them in, and they had all combi plasma, so like you knew to like kind of keep your guys in cover, and so their fire when they came in was kind of limited. But then the combat proved to be just as effective.
Super good. They're 2 wound, aren't they?
Yes.
That's not small, being 2 wound.
As all Legion-specific Terminators should be.
Agreed.
Cries and Terminators.
Well, there's a number of Legion-specific Terminators that are still 1 wound, and but there's no real price difference, and that kind of makes me mad. But
yeah,
no wound, no war gear. Big sad.
Then also last weekend had a couple small games with Chris, because we wanted to play an escalation game. And then we kind of did like an escalation minus game where we took at this point in escalation we're up to 1,000 points, but he has not gotten any games in, so he only had his 500. So we played that game first, and then we kind of just played 1,000-point game with that as a basis and just kind of built off of it, because he really was excited to use that Malkador he printed off for him, so we did that. And I was more scared of that thing than I probably should have been. He fired off its battle cannon, which completely scattered off into fucking space, and then subsequently got its ass blasted by my Meltavets coming in.
But the thing looks phenomenal.
It does. It absolutely does.
I am so happy with that model. Like, I love it.
It looks fucking great. So I don't think he was even mad about it. So yeah, I mean that game kind of went about how you'd expect with Astartes versus low point militia. It's rough for the militia, having played that type of game several times myself.
Yeah.
And then sorry, Gray.
I was just kibitzing. I said can confirm that is rough.
Yeah. And then today we played a 1,500 point game with his Iron Warriors against the Blood Angels, and Blood Angels once again proved that they just cannot deal with Iron Warriors.
Is it the Blood Angels, or is it he who commands the Blood Angels?
I mean, it's probably he who commands, because like I was trying out. I stand for it for so long, and I just don't think that I can keep trying to keep up the facade of trying to sell Day of Sorrows as a good Rite of War. I like, it's just there's too many limitations to it, and the bonuses that you get from it are just not great.
Enough.
Although they did lead to a single assault marine tanking an entire tactical squad in melee, winning the combat, making them take the check at -1, and then sweeping them. So he was kind of a fucking hero.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, he deserves like some sort of marking or something.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's gonna. Yeah, definitely some kind of marking, and or might represent him as one of my chosen that I've been working on building. So,
neat.
But yeah, I was disappointed. I wanted to use my my Crimson Paladins, and it took Chris's whole army to kill him, but he killed them all before they could do anything. So,
I mean, sometimes making an entire army shoot its shot at a single unit is worth the points if you capitalize on it. But
they were the only thing that was left. So, kind of.
Never mind.
Yeah, exactly. It did not go well for me. My assault cannon Contemptor Mortis once again being completely fucking useless. But it through no fault of its own, it just got blown up the first turn, which I got seized on, and that never feels good. And then the poor Dreadnought just got waxed, which isn't his fault.
Yeah, that's rough, but it does happen.
Yeah, it does happen, but Chris is a great guy, and I will never complain about
and an exceptional lover to everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, just the absolute best. We need to get him on the podcast just so.
Such a giver.
But yeah, that's been me. So yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I've pretty much been smashing out Night Lords. Finished my last of 3 HQs the other day. Finished up my Secret Santa project yesterday. All ready for that. Now I'm working on Dreadclaw.
Nice. I'm looking forward to seeing that Dreadclaw. I mean,
yeah, I'm almost done with the base code, and it's looking good, for what it is in that early stage. But yeah, I think it's going to come out really well.
I mean, I'm emotionally invested in your success on that, because that was by far one of the most difficult files I've ever had to figure out how to print in my entire 3D print career. Like, the inside, while it looks good on the outside, what you don't see is that it is an absolute clusterfuck inside those hatches. Everything on the inside of that model is just awful. I wish I could find the artist on this thing and just kind of punch him in the face.
Well,
yeah, I do have to wonder why it looks. I mean, I guess it's just whoever made the file, but it does look significantly different from the the no kidding Forge World Dreadclaw. I mean, still looks a hell of a lot better than the abomination of a drop pod conversion I've been using.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that just you kind of deal with whenever you're looking at 3D print models. Not everything is 1-to-1 or close to 1-to-1. It's just a reasonable artist's rendition of something.
Right.
So and the way that we've kind of operated in our local community, and even you still see it even in the community at large with Heresy. People aren't as worried about where the models came from. They're more worried about does it look good? Does it accurately portray what you're trying to show that the model is? Are you putting in a reasonable amount of hobby effort into it? And as long as all of that pans out, then no one really cares. Like, I don't care. The most important part to me is just rolling dice. So as long as the model looks reasonable and I know what the hell it is, like, I'm good.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I would not be surprised if most people don't even realize that it looks different, because I don't know how much Dreadclaws are actually used. I think they're fairly popular, but I think I might be the only person I know that has ever used one.
I mean, that could also be a symptom of you having gotten one 3D printed and not having to have built it,
or trying to get one from Forge World or from recasters, because Forge World, I don't remember the last time I looked for the Dreadclaw itself. But I do recall one of the last times I saw it, it was out of stock, and was out of stock for a reasonably long time.
Oh yeah, I was looking yesterday. I was like, oh, I'm gonna add a Fire Raptor. Well, let me look. Oh, it's $70 from Recaster, and Forge World is out of stock.
Yeah, I mean that has happened a fair amount, but I'm trying to remember how much the Dreadclaw is, but I mean, just trying to get some of these things has been very difficult over the last 2 years. So, but even before then, like even before the pandemic, like they would go out of stock regularly, so you couldn't get that particular thing. So a lot of people did go with the upside down winged, standard drop pod. And those, I mean, don't get me wrong, they look fine if they're done reasonably well, and they do work. I've seen plenty of people use them to good effect. I remember Steven from up in Richmond, when I played him at the Call to Arms or the muster, 3 or 4 years ago. He had a Word Bearers army that used them, and they were reasonably terrifying. Like he put, I think 2 of them each had like a minimum unit of Gal Vorback in them. So these things are just kind of like flying all over, like spouting jets of fire everywhere. And then when you blew them up, like there's still fucking little demons in there. Like fuck that.
Yeah,
Dreadclaws are great. I'm a huge fan all around. I use I've got a converted drop pod Dreadclaw right now. I use the Charybdis because fuck Spartans.
Yeah,
That's
the Last of the Serrated Sun is a pretty sick rite of war, honestly.
I mean, they worked well. I mean, it was an effective strategy that, like, I was able to beat it, but it was rough, like trying to deal with those things. I don't see a lot of people use the Dread Claws, but I think that's just
that might be a
because,
local thing.
huh?
That might be a local thing.
Oh, even up in Nova, whenever you get a smattering of people from all over, I didn't see many people utilize them. But it goes back to what I was saying, like availability has been a problem for a few years.
Yeah.
And there are, even though Heresy, the community does tend towards more hobbyists and narratively focused people, that does not always mean that they want to go and like do a bunch of scratch building or heavy conversion work to get their stuff done. They just want to be able to go to Forge World and buy the thing that they want.
Oh yeah, 100%. That, I mean, that's I have. Sorry, Jesus. I've held off doing any kind of drop pod centric list because I just don't want to build and paint that many fucking drop pods.
They can be a pain in the ass.
And I have them. Like, I have 3 or 4 drop pods. I just don't want to build or paint them.
So there's also the fact that termites exist. I think people tend to edge more towards those.
Yeah.
And
Termites are
I think
super
that
good.
I like them. I just thematically they don't work in my mind in some ways. I wish they changed. I wish they got tweaked, and then I think that they'd be more attractive to me, rules wise and points wise. But because right now I think they're too cheap for as good as they are. But
yeah,
that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So Ben's miss of the week. Termites.
Nah, I like them. I think that they're a cool model. I do enjoy them. I've got a few. I just don't. I think my biggest problem with them is that they tend to get used in very like narrow ways, and the way that I see them used is almost like auto includes with certain armies. And as we've talked about before, I'm not a huge fan on absolute auto includes. Like, perfect example, every single time I've played someone's AdMech, they've got a termite with some dudes in there with haywire.
Oh yeah, the hoplites.
Yeah, the Sekitari hoplites. Yep, almost every time. Like, I get it. It's a really good tactic. But you've got what is like a 200 point unit that will come in and delete whatever vehicle you've got on the table in one turn, and there's very little you can do to defend against it. And that I'm not a big fan of, but that's just me.
Yeah, and like I did actually use a termite in that game with Eric, that doubles game we did last weekend, and again, him knowing that I had it, and positioning accordingly, I kind of didn't like pop it right up in where it was supposed to be, and kind of like took off to the side, and then it just kind of like trundled back and forth for a bit, just because it was an assassination mission, and
Oh,
I
yeah?
had nominated, secretly nominated a sergeant as the assassination target, and Eric did not do with him what I thought he was going to do with him, and so our battle tactics kind of got screwed because of it. So the termite just kind of like trundled back and forth for a bit, just not knowing what to do. But it did do its job. It did keep the combi plasma vets inside it safe until they could pop out and do something. So
Well,
it did its
that's
job
all you
there.
could ask for.
Yeah. But yeah, I would agree with that. I think they're a little too cheap for what they do. Like,
Yeah.
I want to go there. Well, there's something there already. Move it. Like,
That sounds like a them problem, not a me problem.
no, it's the
Okay.
children who are wrong. Well, do we want to roll on to pick of the week?
Sure.
All right. Well, let's see. Ben, are you going to continue your pattern of being an STL Kickstarter stan this week?
I will. So I will keep my, because I don't really have a true pick of the week. So I will default back to cool things on Kickstarter. As of today, we've got 8 days left on what is turning out to be a real super popular Kickstarter. The company that does the 3D printers that I primarily use, the Elegoo Saturns, they're doing a Kickstarter for their next iteration, the Jupiter, and this thing is a goddamn monster. Like it looks like a mini fridge. It's that big.
Oh Jesus, it does. I just pulled up the page. God damn, it's a fucking unit.
It is an absolute unit, and Elegoo is a really good company, and while I understand the issues that people take with established companies utilizing Kickstarter for like their pre-order system, quote unquote, I do understand that, but that does not take away from the fact that from a consumer perspective, boy, can you get some good deals doing that. So I will fully admit that I've not backed it, but I am like I'm kind of itching a little bit. Like, do I do it? Like, should I? Because that's not a small investment. But
No, so it's like to give people some context because I'm looking at it now. There's a Kickstarter like early bird or like pre-order special for it. The Elegoo Jupiter 12.8-inch 6K MSLA 3D printer is going to be retailing for $1,300, and through the Kickstarter you can get it for $740. So you're almost getting 50% off.
Yeah, like, and that's what's kind of driving me. Like, do I wait and potentially get it at retail, because the Elegoo is kind of flip flopped on whether or not they'll be available through Amazon, like the Saturns were that I got, which is a big deal because the thing weighs like 100 pounds. So there's a lot of talk about like, well, not only is it $1,300, but then you've got to tack on another, potentially $200 or so for shipping if they're not allowing it through Amazon, or if it's going to be Prime eligible, which is that's a big deal for people who order off Amazon. So it I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, what could I do on that thing? Because like for where I'm at and doing what I'm doing, I'm not really worried about mass production. I can do that reasonably easy for the amount of time that I want to put into it. The only thing that it would really provide me is the ability to produce some single part or single piece larger models,
Would it make printing things like Marauders easier?
Excuse me?
Would it make printing Marauders easier?
Marauders? Yes. Presumably, I'd be able to do it in fewer parts. So
yeah, like I was thinking about your Mastodon that you did. I feel like you'd probably still need some kind of multi-part kit for that, but maybe fewer multi-parts.
So honestly, with the Mastodon, if it's angled and properly supported, I would be willing to. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this without some ample practice first. But I bet I could do a single print Mastodon.
Oh boy. I suspect that 2022 or 23 will be the year of the Mastodon meta in the Hampton Roads gaming community.
Like instead of rhinos, everyone's got 7 mastodons.
Armored spearhead, except it's all mastodons.
Yeah. So if you are, I would not at all recommend this for someone who's just getting into the hobby, but for anyone who's already in it, or looking to just look at something and learn about the hobby, like it's going to be real interesting to see how that changes things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you were brand new, no, this is not a machine for you, because like you're going to be fucking up a lot of stuff when you first start getting into that hobby, and when you've got a bigger machine, the fuck ups are just that much bigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like this
True.
right now, to give you a sense of scale, the Saturn that I use right now can hold approximately $25 worth of resin in the tank at once, and that represents about 3/4 of a liter.
Mm.
Whereas the Jupiter can hold let's see, 1.75 liters. So a whole, a bottle and most of another bottle, and then you can have an entire other bottle hooked into the back of it just as a refill reservoir.
Or as we like to refer to it, as a gray. It sounds
Yeah.
like you can hold about 1 gray's worth of resin.
Like it can hold like $80 worth of material in there, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, how much of a Thunderhawk can I do in one go?
Fucking pogs, dude.
Yeah, so that's my pick of the week. Like, whether I back it or not, it's gonna help kind of make the larger format printers a little bit more mainstream, and that's gonna lead to some like nifty things just in tabletop gaming. Like,
Yeah.
whether it's for Warhammer or anything else, being able to make those bigger models just means it's going to be more. There's going to be more opportunities for people to get big fun things to build and paint, which is always a good thing.
Sure. So yeah, we'll have that link down in the description for any of you mad lads out there that have damn near $800 to drop on a 3D printer, but it's there. No, and the innovation for the hobby at large is yeah, it's definitely.
I mean, not to capitalize, or not to monopolize the conversation, but like when I look at just the circles that we are a part of, and like while I'm kind of like the main 3D printer in this area, there are plenty of others that are that are helping to supply the community with things. Like, it has almost single-handedly recreated or allowed Battlefleet Gothic to exist again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, it is not, while you can make the argument about how printing models for this game is IP theft or whatever. Like, I get it, we can have that conversation, but like Battlefleet was basically dead. Then the 3D printers becoming more available has allowed it to make a huge comeback. Like, people are playing that game all over again, and so and not only I use Battlefleet Gothic, but there are lots of games. Epic. I mean, you can't go out and buy Epic models anymore, or War Master models anymore, but you can fucking print them.
Yeah,
and you can play the shit out of it. And
Yep.
there's other like tabletop games or war games that are like the One Page Rule guys came out with a bunch of models to help feed their games. So it's an entirely 3D printable game. And like, having more access to that just means that the average player has more options on how they can build their collection and play way more games that might not be commercially available anymore, and that's really cool to me.
Yeah, and from kind of the like model painter background perspective as well. I mean, there's a lot of Patreon, like monthly, like 3D printing company subscription type things.
Oh yeah,
that have busts in like larger scale figures, like as part of the collections that they sell every month.
oh yeah.
So like,
There's some
for
really
anybody,
cool ones.
yeah, absolutely. Like, for, people that want to like dip their toe into painting larger scale figures, but don't want to pay 40, 50, 60 euros for larger scale figures or busts. I mean, it's a great way of trying it out because, I mean, okay, yeah, ask Ben to print you a bust and you're out, $25, $30, whatever, and no harm done. If you don't like
Oh
it,
yeah.
it's,
I mean,
whatever.
one of the locals, like, I actually had this conversation a couple weeks ago. He wanted to get the Forge World, the Scabiathrax model, the big Great Unclean one. And he was gonna buy that sucker, and he's like, I don't know, 190, 200 some odd dollars. He's a big chunky boy. He's a big piece of resin, but he wanted to practice his scheme on something that was not that cost. So we found another Great Unclean proxy model, something that looked very similar that he could reasonably practice on before he bought the real big one. He's like, I don't want to fuck up a really big expensive model and then have to potentially strip it and damage it, or be unhappy with the paint job. So yeah, no, I get people wanting just busts or practice figures all the time because it's worth that money for being able to test some things out before they commit to their real stuff.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
love if someone could print me a big bust.
Right?
You've already got a big bust.
The difference
Oh,
is he
you
went out.
noticed?
You beat me to it. He wanted a wearable one. You beat me to it.
That's true.
All right.
So Eric, what about you? Hit of the week?
Yeah, so continuing my Night Lords trend as I go on this journey, his name Linus at Mostberg Minis recently posted on his Instagram a bunch of uh, looks to be some Terra Marines, some Night Raptors, and a Contemptor, and they look clean AF. Interestingly, he's got the silver trim, which for those who have been keeping up, at some point, Forge World decided the Night Lords went from a silver trim to a gold trim, which you can see on some of the models on the website and in Book 9. The silver trim is what they had in Book 3. And I mean, either way looks good. I'm using gold myself, but these guys are pretty good.
Yeah, the silver does look pretty slick. And for what it's worth, I know that Linus is also an active listener of the cast, so hi, Linus.
Oh, hey, what up? You got some good looking Night Lords.
Mm. Yeah, man, it's good shit. And for what it's worth, he's also painted for kind of to lead into my pick of the week, not to supersede Gray or anything, but it's a decent transition. He's also just recently posted his Bad Ab Resurrection Marine. Myself and some other guys in the painting lodge are involved in a Bad Ab Resurrection project, and our challenge for this month was to do like a test marine of our chosen chapters, which obviously I did Lamenters because I'm a Lamenter fanboy at heart. But Linus has done the Exorcists, and he's posted his test marine for his scheme, and it's the same very clean, precise, purposeful placement of paint. It looks fucking great. And leading into my pick of the week is similar. Got the Instagram page, The Legiones Astartes, which, fun fact, this is Anuja's Instagram account. Anuj is also into this project, and he's posted. I've seen some more pictures of it, but he posted on his Instagram a picture of his Carcharodon test marine, which is using the Tortuga Mark V body and helmet, and it looks pretty fucking sick. I'm definitely a fan of Carcharodons, and he's kind of gone for more of like a almost like bone white gray, like kind of dead gray rather than like storm gray for him, and I think it fucking works pretty fucking well.
Yeah, no, his stuff has been looking good.
Yeah, he's definitely. Ironically enough, it seems like since he's not at Forge World anymore, he probably has more time for doing his own hobby stuff. So he's had the opportunity to really improve his hobby. level up his painting for sure.
Oh, love it.
And last but not least, Gray.
All right. So last but least,
Your
Also,
words,
yes.
not mine.
yeah, it's okay. Uh, so my pick of the week, I kind of bounced around, but I'm gonna pop back over to the 3D print train for pick of the week. And my pick of the week is the Cheese Stealer Cults, which is their models designed by That Evil One. You can find them on
Yes.
various different things, Cults 3D, a couple other sites, and basically it's 30K or 40K Skaven, but kind of
Nice.
designed sort of line up with the Gene Stealer Cult range, I guess, for 40K.
Yep.
But I mean, I love it. It's great. There's a lot of humor in it.
I've been
dig
using
the
a bunch of his stuff over the last couple years. And every once in a while I get a request for something like from his stuff, and like hey, do you have any idea on how to make a cheese stealer, or not a cheese stealer, but do you like making something like sci-fi rats? I'm like, boy, can I direct you to the right place. I actually did if you remember, about 6 months ago, there was a Kickstarter. I think we talked about it in group for the Lunar Auxilla. It's like that was by him as well. That I backed. Beautiful models, like they're, and I did some for Chris. They look great. Like they're really cool looking, and so yeah, lots of stuff. He does a lot of really cool stuff.
So yeah, that'd be my pick of the week. It's a perfect blend of humor and really great models, which I think is kind of the soul of what 40K and third and Warhammer and all that was originally about. Whether it is anymore, it's what it was about in the beginning: cool models and tongue-in-cheek humor.
Man, I'm super into the Doom Wheel conversion for 40K, like the monocycles, that like the sniper dudes. I guess the like jackals, like proxy. Those are fucking sick. I was
good.
also stealing this. What is it? The Keller morph. That's like the rootin' tootin' gunslinger boy. There's like the rat version that's got the 2 pistols in his hands, and he's got a third one in his fucking tail. That's so sick. Oh man, I'm into this. I'm a buyer on this one. Oh man, this is good shit.
It's pretty great. They just put out. It was, which one is it? The one I like. He has one that is. Where is it? Yeah, these melee ones. These are kind of cool. The Obama rats. They're pretty sick too.
Also,
sounds like something you'd hear on a conservative subreddit. You Obama rats.
Obama rat.
God damn it. I'm also appreciating the different levels of pledge support are all just different types of cheese.
Yep.
Which is super nice touch, and I'm here for it.
I stand it.
Yeah, this is good shit, man. I'm into this.
Yeah, that's my pick.
All right, good. Well picked. Yeah. So, I mean, does anybody have a particular miss of the week? It's not something that we want to like make a regular segment. As far as like, if we've got a miss of the week, we'll talk about it. But if we don't have one, like, we're not gonna go out of our way to go and find one. There's enough salt on the internet as far as Warhammer is concerned. We don't need to add to that any more than necessary.
The only thing that I'll say that I'm kind of just annoyed with is I don't play a lot of games right now, but I do like looking at the apps to give me ideas, or just to kind of dick around with and run lists and stuff. And just, even though it's at a like there's a subscription model for these things, like they still don't work right, and that just annoys me.
Yeah,
that's a good miss.
I'm like, you've got, you're the biggest war games company on the planet, and you can't get us an app that works. Like, come on.
Certainly
I'm
not one that we're expected to pay for. I think that's
exactly. And
that's the main
that to me is a big miss. Like, you've got an opportunity to make something that's like super good, like really makes the hobby and gaming easier and more intuitive for everyone, and would like really help drive sales. I feel like if it's done well, because I know that for me personally, having the old Age of Sigmar app helped me make a pretty good amount of purchase decisions. But yeah, the new one's just really not a big fan right now, and I'm sure that there's some other value that comes out of the Warhammer Plus subscription, like with the shows and whatnot. And and it's not like it's an expensive buy-in per month, but being a cheap buy-in does not excuse bad functionality.
sure. And I mean, it being an advertised feature, I think,
Yeah, a major one at that.
which I have not seen any of the Warhammer Plus content myself, just because I haven't really been in a position where I feel like I'm going to get the most out of it at this moment. But I have definitely been seeing the results of Louise's masterclass videos, and I'm super into that because Louise is a fantastic painter, and the fact that she's kind of now the new, I guess, figurehead. I don't want to say figurehead because that's got like bad connotations, but kind of the face of like upper level, GW sponsored painting content. I think is fantastic, and I'm really into seeing.
I guess what you mean.
Yeah. I don't think she's ever gonna replace Duncan, but like the fact that she's teaching new and different things than Duncan did, I think is really a cool thing. So I'm definitely into that. So kind of to roll it back into, and it like credit where credit is due. Like we're not gonna just bag on Games Workshop or Forge World just because. Like if they're doing something right and they're doing something that's good, it's something we're definitely gonna mention too. So.
When they do good, we reward. When they do bad, they get the stick. It's always been my thing.
It does the app or it gets the hose again. Oh fuck. All right. Well, I mean, is that all the salt that we want to mine this week?
Yeah, I think that's a good amount. We can be salty again later on. Yeah. There's plenty of opportunity.
So
at some point we need to get that voice clip from that old A&E thing or whatever it is.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if we were on be that level of degenerate and just fucking lean into the memes, I guess that's something that we can do.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Like,
it's a real banger.
Oh man, no, we're not doing that again. Oh no, we're not starting that again. All right, well, Eric, if you want to take over now, I know this topic this week is kind of your baby. So if you want to walk us through that.
Yeah, for sure. So heresy, as far as I can tell, from the community, a lot more than 40K. Ironically enough, given the historical nature, is very much a more narrative focused and very your dudes type of game. A lot of people are building real extensive fluff and background for their characters and their armies. And one of the things that I see online a lot is, well, I don't really know what's a good way to, start building something like that, or even building an army. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is kind of where can you draw inspiration, whether it's for building an army itself or even just trying to build your own narrative. So one of the four things that I have found inspiration in, kind of give you an idea of what it is that I'm talking about here, is finding inspiration for armies from particular models that you see and you're like, oh man, I want to do something like that. Or a certain play style that you want to do and what you can build to take full advantage of that. An in lore, an in game kind of event that you're like, oh man, Alltech Moore is a super cool guy when he dropped the moon on the World Eaters. I want to play, something like that. Or even like real world historical events or people. So Gray, I know you've got some militia, which are very much a customizable force. So, why don't you tell us a little about what you've done from things like that to build your narrative?
So I started building militia last year, and it came out of the first thing was I wanted to do something different. So I picked the rules that I wanted, and that militia has, if for those of you who don't know, instead of legions, it's got like army traits, like the old like third and fourth ed Imperial Guard. So you can pick different ones. There's ones that are like cult hordes, or there's a feral warriors, warrior elite. Survivors of the Dark Age was the one that dragged what really caught my attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a build-a-bitch army, basically.
Yep.
Right. So, Survivors of the
Literally
Dark
in some
Age.
cases.
Literally, in
Yeah,
some
so they're
cases.
supposed to be, they're supposed to have all these better las guns. That's one of the main draws of Survivors of the Dark Age. They're more technologically advanced. They got better las guns. So I said, okay, well, better las guns. That sounds to me like the hotshot las guns that the old Kazarkin or the new Tempestus Signs would have had. Okay, Tempestus Signs body. Now, how do I make it my dudes? And at the time, I was reading a bunch of World War II history and stuff like that. So I got real interested in some of the stories you hear about, like in Japan. They were very sure that they were going to get a land invasion. They started training the women and children home. There's all these pictures you see where they have, whole, field of women training with, stick mines and things like that. So I was like, all right, well, where can we take this? And so I just picked a name. I picked Duncanjima, which is Battleship Island. It's this abandoned old mining island off the coast of Japan. It was actually the site for the Skyfall movie from James Bond, like that the big island offshore in James Bond,
Most islands are.
Where it's like it's all abandoned. They do like the William Tell thing, and then Javier Bardem shoots the Bond girl in the face.
Yep.
That scene. Well, that's a actual place. It was abandoned. The mine was abandoned because it like dried up and weather got shitty or something. But so I said, okay, well, how do I adapt that to 40K? So I changed the name a little bit. I said, my army is like the last survivors of some little world that just got bulldozed as the legions went through fighting each other. So all that's left is the women that were on this little side training asteroid that was in orbit of the planet. So then I ended up with an all-female guard army. Did a lot of conversion heads. I'm like, well, since they're training army, they're not going to wear necessarily all your, super tech camo and stealth. They're going to be in bright orange armor because it's all training armor. They just repurposed and said, all right, here's your training gear. Take it, put live rounds, and let's go fight. That's kind of the long and short of it.
Yeah, the real kind of human wave situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. So a little bit of lore fluff, a little bit of historical fluff, a little bit of visual inspiration that you had for it. I dig it. I'm into it.
Yeah, well, yeah, a little all of that kind of stuff. You had the play style that you wanted to do with your Survivors of the Dark Age. You had the historical. It's it comes together good.
Yeah, I let rules and fluff kind of play together. A lot of times people, when they look at army creation, they look at rules or fluff. I was kind of looking at how can the rules I want affect the fluff that I'm going to apply to the army, and vice versa.
That is one good thing about that I really like about militia is that because it is a a build-a-bear army, like there's a lot of leeway to be able to accomplish that. Usually in a couple of different ways. Like there are some people that can shoehorn in whatever special rules they want to make it seem like it's a fluffy choice, but oftentimes it's just because it's a good rule. But like with the provenances of war that you can take with militia, like you really can do some really cool stuff. Also some really dumb stuff too, but that's just militia in general.
That could be a conversation. Honestly, if you're playing militia, I feel like you deserve any and all advantages you get, because You're doing the Emperor's work, really.
You're definitely playing with one hand behind your back a lot of times, especially in small games. With
playing
militia.
Heresy on hard mode.
Yeah, unless of course you do the complete Chad move and take Warrior Elite, and then you're almost guaranteed to win every game you play.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, like, you might as well just.
I mean, Warrior Elite is a bastion against fear.
It's very true.
First rule of Warrior Elite is Omewa Mo Shinderu. You know.
Aiwa Mon Shinderu. God damn it.
Well, great. You could have, with the whole Japanese influence, you could have taken Warrior Elite for those guys.
Yep.
I definitely could. I went Cyber Augmetics on top of my Survivors of the Dark Age.
That's a really good Provenance, though, man. Like, that's so good.
Yeah, stacking them together made a very defensive army, which sort of fit the fluff because they're like the last defenders of their homeworld or whatever. But yeah, I actually, with the Japanese thing, most of the writing on their tanks and vehicles and flags is actually done in, like, I looked up little Japanese characters to try to write it. It's turned out really well. Maybe I'll link some pictures up in a few minutes.
See, and so I mean, you're also kind of pulling in your other interests into the hobby. You're kind of a weeb, so you're like, well, how can I mix that with Warhammer without just making, female body pillow Space Marine art? And you arrived at something that I think is actually kind of healthy.
I definitely didn't go for like the waifu weeb kind of thing. There are female heads, obviously, head swaps, but I didn't do a whole lot of torso or body swaps because that's not how I picture body armor.
No cat girl helmets.
No, at the time when I was going through, I used Victoria miniatures for my heads.
Yep.
I ended up using a lot of the Ushanka style heads. So they have like these, Russian, bearskin cap kind of things with like the shorty ones, like the Cold War era Russian kind of hats.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gives it a little flavor, like, maybe it's cold in space. I don't know. Whatever.
I hope they've got more to help them than just a Russian hat while they're floating around in space.
Space is cold and vast. Here's a hat. Good luck.
Though that does sound very Russian army.
That sounds very Warhammer too, to be fair.
It fits Warhammer. Space is cold.
Space is cold. Here's your furry hat and flashlight. Have fun.
You know what? I think I just got a really good idea for the t-shirts for Nova. Welcome to the grim dark future of the 41st millennia. Here's your hat.
But it moved for a female army, and it was something I didn't see anyone else doing. Because I saw a lot of people doing female armies where it'd be bear heads, or they'd use the female Acadian style heads you can get from different companies. But no one was using the Ushanka kind of Valhallan style heads, or for a female.
I know the new Sisters of Battle line is definitely a temptation for people to. I'll be honest. I was tempted by the idea of doing Survivors of the Dark Age, Sisters of Battle, Militia, and fucking Land Raiders because that sounds lit as a tit. So be lying if I said I didn't think about that myself.
It's pretty great. So there's a lot of opportunities for fun in it, and that's something I've tried to do with most of my armies. I've tried to go for like a theme, like a sub theme. Like I did Black Shields, and the Black Shield idea was, what if a group of Space Wolves got lost and cut off right at the beginning of the heresy, and then just went kind of nuts and rogue, like they didn't have any real command structure, so they just went and pirated for a while.
Sounds like something that they would do.
Yeah, they just went a Viking,
Yeah.
Disregard Emperor, acquire pillage.
Acquire bitches.
Acquire bitches in Miad or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I do think Gray is one of the more narratively motivated players that we have, where the army choices you make are truly narratively driven, and definitely you're sticking to a theme and telling a story, and that's what kind of takes foremost in your choices that you make.
Well, thank you. That's high praise.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's high praise.
It is appreciated and does not go unnoticed.
I know Eric's done some narratively themed armies. His Black Shields were pretty narrative.
Yeah, my Black Shields, which I don't really do anymore, but I've still got them. They are a World Eaters spin-off. The idea being that their Reaver Lord is in Terminator armor, and his deal is basically that he was one of Angron's bodyguards, which is not, a high position really to find yourself in. And that's part of what I was trying to go for, is not to make them one of the real big deals in the setting. But basically, he saw Angron ascend to demonhood and was like, you know what, my position sucks already. I hate the Emperor, but I didn't sign up for this shit. I'm getting out of here.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah, so he took whatever guys wanted to go with him or were able to, and ultimately nobody noticed that he left the Legion. Is kind of what I'm going for there. And then my warmonger that went with him is kind of a big fish in a small pond type deal. He's like, well, I'm never gonna make a big name for myself here with all the other super crazy guys that are around. So I may as well go with this guy, and maybe the Legion will learn my name this way if I'm going out there fucking with them. And with that, I also took one of the Chimera options is the one that gives them Fear, Fleet, and Rage, mostly just to indicate that they're still World Eaters even if they're gone. So they're still going to have Butcher's Nails. They're still going to be crazy guys.
Wild and crazy guys.
Wild and
Indeed.
crazy guys. God damn it. Am I just is that my thing now? Am I just gonna repeat the jokes that you did just in funny voices?
Yep, that's now your shtick.
I guess that's my shtick now, and we're gonna shtick to it.
It's the high on
Ah.
Potnu skit from Key and Peele now. I wish I was high on Potnu's.
Yeah, I feel like Black Shields, not quite to the level that Militia are, but I do feel like they're another really one of those your dudes armies having no, very limited official characters and a lot of different rules that you can pull from to kind of make things your own.
Oh, definitely. Like I think the biggest problem with when you compare Black Shields with Militia is that at at like higher points values, I don't feel like Black Shields. I don't feel like they scale as well. Like I just don't think that their rules are as well done overall as militias are. But militias can even be like considered a little bit overpowered in certain circumstances. Whereas I've played some strong Black Shields lists, but never have I been like, that is entirely broken and I never want to play it again. I have played some militia armies like that though.
Yeah, and I think Black Shields 2 are another ones where you can even take, oh, this is a play style that I want to go with. So I'm going to, build something off of that. Like one of the Chimera options is all your Marines get +1 strength and toughness. And you're like, well, how do I get my Marines to that kind of point? And you can be like, oh, they're, Fabius's monster men that are coming around during the heresy, or, the Iron Hands with their keys to hell resurrecting the dead. Stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Fucking Iron Hands fucking around.
Yeah, I used my militia used that +1 strength and tough, and part of the explanation was that since they've been on their own, they've been playing with a lot of Xenos tech. Like every squad has Xenos deathlocks in it, things like that. So they've been playing with their equipment and playing with their I don't want to finish the sentence because I can't with you guys, but playing with their gene seed to be stronger.
Huffing all that xenosteroids.
Mm,
Gotta
Yeah.
love the roids.
yep.
Yeah, like I had contemplated running my Luna Wolves as Black Shields, but then that kind of didn't really match the initial idea I had for them. So, like, to kind of give another direction that you can form an army from, speaking of Duncan, second time I'm going to mention Duncan today. I remember watching a few years back. He did a how to paint Luna Wolves video, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty dope. I'm into that color scheme. That color scheme fucks. Except he like recess shaded them or like washed them with like Agrax Earthshade, and I was like, I wonder what they would look like if I did that with purple instead. And it kind of just simmered in the back of my head for a while. I was like, I kind of want to do this at some point. Like, we've all got those projects that we think of and then just kind of quite never get off the ground.
You mean every project that I currently have?
I mean, some worse than others, but sure. And then a person locally who had already started a Luna Wolves army was getting out of it, and I was like, well, that's my cue. So I snapped that up and started working on that. And honestly, a lot of those models I still have in the army, like in their original form. Like the tactical squad I just did is more or less the way that I bought them. And so I just kind of rolled with it from there. So, the initial inspiration for the project was just kind of an alternative color scheme that I saw that I imagined and wanted to do something with.
It does look good. Like it's a good take on it.
Yeah, and it's certainly a unique looking army, that's for sure. And that's kind of like one of my motivations when I'm painting something is do it a little differently than everybody else might do it, even if it's subtle, especially in a game like Horus Heresy where you are kind of painting the same 20 armies or so. Like you gotta find the way to make it yours, even though you're painting the same thing that everybody else is. So rather than running loyalist Sons of Horus as Sons of Horus, I decided to make the decision. Well, decided to make the decision. Goddamn, I made the decision to run loyalist Sons of Horus, Luna Wolves as loyalist Sons of Horus. And the kind of theme of my army is because they didn't really exist as Luna Wolves for very long into the heresy itself. At least in any kind of like organized fighting force, right? So my army is themed around the Ulanor campaign. Also, kind of coming from the fact that I decided at one point that I was going to theme my force around Hastur Sejanus's Fourth Company, because he's a very enigmatic character in the sense that we don't really know that much about him. He's kind of mentioned very like one of the opening scenes in Horus Rising is him getting blasted out of orbit by the forces of the world that they've come to bring into compliance, and then Horus kind of sees some visions of him, a la Erebus when he gets shanked with the lair sword or whatever the fuck.
Yep.
So
yeah,
like
he's one of those guys that everybody seems to love, but we don't actually know anything about.
right.
Well, you have so little like on the books knowledge of who he is, but he inadvertently becomes one of the most important figures in the entire universe simply because of how his death kind of got the ball rolling in like starting the heresy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a butterfly effect, but it's definitely there. So and I decided to kind of take that and run with it. And I was like, okay, well, and as I've mentioned before, I kind of made the decision to do the army in non-metallic metal as a way to kind of like force myself to learn and practice the technique. Like, okay, well, that's a lot of fucking bodies to get get on the table with that particular technique. So, I kind of leaned into starting the force as Pride of the Legion, which I know that Rite of War catches a lot of flack from people as like being quote unquote lazy heresy, and I mean that may or may not be true. It might be an easy way for me to get lots of Terminators into my army that otherwise I might not be able to take. But I also think that it has its place as far as being a very accessible Rite of War for new players to
Definitely.
get into the
for
game
sure.
with a very low model count, or maybe not new players, but players that are doing a very tedious and time-consuming painting technique to get a playable army on the table. So while I was working towards this 1,500 point core, which is kind of the same list that I was mentioning earlier, I was like, okay, well, how do I want to expand this army? And a Rite of War that I have a soft spot for and that I don't see very often is Armored Spearhead. I fucking love Land Raiders. They're like one of my favorite things in the Warhammer universe, and any list that allows me to have more Land Raiders in my army, I'm into it. So that's kind of the force, the way I'm taking the force now, and kind of building around that. I'm thinking, okay, so how do I want to theme this? So I've kind of leaned into this idea of having this like Sejanus's fourth company being kind of this spearhead thrust into some kind of orc force or encampment or something like that, and kind of the opening salvo in a larger scale engagement, fast moving mechanized infantry that's getting in there to secure a foothold and then hold their position with armored support. So I've got some rhinos and land raiders and a couple Sicarans. I'm gonna have some sabers in the list as well. Just lots of fast moving tanks and mechanized infantry, and that's kind of the direction I'm taking the army, at least for now. And we'll have to see how painting non-metallic metal on tanks treats me. I feel like it's gonna be very rudimentary and just kind of cut all the corners I possibly can on it. But again, it's another challenge to present me with. So we'll see how that goes. So it kind of the nutshell version being that a piece of artwork or an artistic choice kind of informed the army, and then I kind of rolled through the other elements of how do I want to build this force from, okay, an initial color scheme that I want to try or that I like, into a piece of lore that I want to latch onto and build from, which is, even a very small, diminutive part of the lore that I can kind of use as an anchor point to build my own narrative, and then making gameplay decisions from that. So just kind of as a different way of approaching how to build an army and how to build a force from.
Dig it.
Yeah, so that's kind of like, Gray and I had talked about Black Shields already, which are, kind of your dudes of the army. But it doesn't have to come from, those kinds of things. You can have, whatever pre-established legion or anything like that. You can still build something really great out of it.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
every legion had, how many like hundreds of companies of, thousands of space marines each. I mean, there's something out there that you could build for yourself. I mean, just
Right.
pick a number between 1 and 500 and just build that company and just make it your own.
Sure. Like just for an example, if you wanted to build something that make it your guys off the top of your head, off the top of my head, like you could say, hey, I want to build Imperial Fists. I don't like painting yellow, so I'm going to make them all be early Crusade hunters. So they're going to be, mostly gray, and they're going to have yellow, just the one yellow arm. You go, well, let's make a Alexis Pollock's army. So give them all the left hand reds because they eventually become the Crimson Fists. Boom, just like that. That's how easy you can make your dudes be your dudes in the Legion.
Even using, as you said, Alexis Pollux, even using a named character that has their own bespoke model and rules in the army. Like, I know, at least for myself, for a long time, I kind of was turned off of, using like named characters and stuff because I thought it was kind of boring and like, oh well, everybody plays Karn. Like everybody wants to play Karn's army because Karn's a fucking badass. Like, so I have to be a special snowflake and I have to do something different. So I feel like I can't use Karn because I don't want to run that army. But you can still make it your own. You can still do your own thing with it, even with these quintessential cornerstone characters in the legions.
Oh,
For
and
sure.
that's one of the things to bounce off your point. This is at its core, it is a competitive game. Like you're pitting your army against someone else's army using the rules presented, and so sometimes you want to build an army that has a certain certain capabilities or has certain or access to certain rules that you can only get through these named characters. So, but that being said, it is totally acceptable to take a named character and kind of rebuild it as your own, like model wise, and name him something different in your army. Like going using Karn as the example, like build something similar to Karn, but make it your own. You don't have to use the Karn model. You can have it be another champion or another a bodyguard from for Angron. Like you can do that and use the named character rules if they provide something that your army wouldn't have access to otherwise. And I will also say that that may not be as acceptable for certain events, but in my experience, most heresy events are very, kind of they allow a lot of that narrative artistic license. So there's nothing in my mind stopping you from being able to take those named characters and make them a unique part of an army that you made from scratch.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
even if you don't like, even if you are like, oh, I want to use this named character, I mean, there's still nothing wrong with doing that. If that's the point you want to use, like, oh, I really love Alexis Pollux just because he's a super cool guy. That's still the inspiration that you can find there.
yeah, and
Oh,
I
yeah,
like
it's not like the named characters didn't just kind of get shipped off randomly for special missions or, on loan for a particular engagement. So I mean, you can always find you can probably find something in the official lore, and if you can't, you can always make up something.
sure. Like to go off your point about, and that is something that I'll admit I hadn't really considered in any kind of depth of kind of using the models or rules or whatever for named characters and then just changing the name that's attached to them. I know Alex over at the Death and Betrayal podcast is doing that with his. He's building an Ashen Claws Black Shields force and is using the rules for the Nemean Reaver as his. I can't remember the name of it, but some fucking Raven Guard that's the like centurion or captain or whatever, the Ashen Claws, and he's using the Nemean Reaver's rules for that model. It's based off of, I mean, obviously it's based off of the lore, but like the model and the artwork itself is based off of the Legion's card game. I guess there's an Ashen Claws deck in the Legion's game.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something that I had heard and kind of glossed over, not really given much thought. But yeah, that's a really good point too. As far as
Well, another example that I'll kind of pull in is like for Space Wolves, they have oh gosh, they have the the Fell Hand. Gosh, I can't
Go.
remember his Gregor,
Igor.
Gygor, yeah, Gygor Fellhand. He's a pretty reasonable, like Praetor level character. Reasonably priced, has good, rules that aren't like crazy or anything. But one problem with him is, finding the model.
yeah,
Like so, because it only came out with the Burning a Prospero box set. So finding that model now is more difficult than it used to be. So having to either kit bash something and make your own is I've seen that pretty commonly across Space Wolf players. But you don't have to keep the name. like there's nothing wrong with just taking that 185 point model and just naming it something different. Yeah, you're still kind of beholden to the war gear options that you need to have fairly visible. But that's it.
Yeah, I think you just touched on a big point there. Especially if you're going to go to events with your dudes. If you're doing something non-standard, you should probably be consistent with it. That it make it very clear to your opponent that this visual cue means this in the army.
That's
Like,
why I pointed out the war gear options. Like if
yeah,
you're gonna take a Gygor, you can't have him modeled with a power axe when he very clearly is supposed to have a power claw. So
right.
there are limitations to what I'm saying, in being able to take the named characters as your own, but still you have some artistic license that you shouldn't be afraid to utilize. And if you ever have questions on a particular conversion or something that you've done for your army, always ask the EO for an event.
Right, and there's so many different options for most weapons and warrior out there that you can be creative without running into that kind of issue.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I run into this question I see this question all the time in the Heresy servers, like Discord servers that I'm in, is, well, I want to have a Paragon blade, but I kind of want my guy to have an axe. Like, yes, absolutely do a Paragon blade axe, absolutely do a Paragon blade fucking Thunderhammer, whatever. Like, the Paragon blade is just a profile. It is not like a bespoke thing. Like, make it what you want to. If you want your guy to have a fucking Paragon blade meteor hammer, like, fucking go for it, dude.
Oh yeah, like my Night Lords guy has fucking Abaddon's 40k Talon of Horus as his Paragon blade because it's a big fucking cool lightning claw.
Because what's better than one Paragon blade? Fucking 4.
But at the same time, in your army, you don't use that same bit to be a lightning claw somewhere else in your army, right?
You're right, exactly. Yeah, for all my
That's
regular
what you
lightning claws, I
talked
use
about.
regular lightning claws,
Yeah, it's unique enough that it'll stand out on its own. Yeah,
and it's
Right.
fuck huge.
yeah, it is.
So
it's fucking
Fuck huge. God damn it.
goes back to that consistency point I was trying to make about your conversions. Like, be
Okay, I
consistent.
got you.
Don't, like, if you're gonna run, one guy's got a power axe, the other guy's got an axe, but it's actually not an axe. The same, even though it's the same guy, same model. Well, on this guy, it's a Paragon blade. That tends to
Yeah.
annoy other people.
There has to be something that helps delineate them from the rest of the rabble, because having because I run a lot of power axes, but I also tend to run a couple of Paragon blades. So having one guy with a Paragon axe, like how's my opponent supposed to realize that thing may be different? So and that can be done in a lot of different ways, using a special like axe, put it on an obviously different type of model, so like it stands out from being just a random dude in a Gray Slayer squad. Like there's lots of ways that you can
You paint it differently.
leverage that. Yeah, paint him differently. Instead of having a silver blade, it's got like an energy blade on it. There's lots of different ways you can do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we all know the difference between a person that's doing this because it's cool and is doing this as some kind of gaming advantage. And my advice to you out there that might think about doing that is, don't be that guy, because that guy doesn't get games.
Well, he gets one.
Well, yes, he gets a game. So I hope this, however many hundreds of dollars and how many dozens of hours you put into putting this army together, investment was worth it for you for one game.
Yeah.
Fair warning. But yeah, like, don't be afraid to experiment and do what you want to do with the hobby. It's your hobby. Yeah, just follow the passion.
Follow your heart. Listen to your heart when it's calling your name.
Do what feels good, man.
Well, since I didn't get called on, I'm actually going to jump in.
No, you're not allowed. You have to be holding the talking stick.
That's today's podcast, guys. Thanks for coming.
I don't know why Jake hates me so much, but he does.
I think it's just genetic at this point.
That may actually be true. But I'm gonna give 2 quick examples. I won't talk for too long on them, but that were the inspiration for some of my armies. My primary army being Space Wolves, and this was not like a deep, fluff creation on my part. Like I basically took a pivotal moment in the Space Wolves, timeline, and chose to represent an established army from an established event. In this case, it was the force that landed with Lehman Russ on the burning of Prospero. So the way I represented that, nothing super special, except they're all based on marble, gold and marble bases, to show that they were part of that first group that charged into Prospero. And in a couple of games I'll ally them in with some Sisters of Silence or some some Custodes, just to to keep with the fluff. But there's nothing wrong with taking something straight out of the book and making an army out of that, because Burning of Prospero it's a fun story. Like and I've always been a Space Wolf fanboy, so like watching them kind of at their best, fighting wise, like that was cool. But I actually, for my militia, which I'm will probably always be in a state of unbuilt, like it's always going to be a work in progress. I actually got the inspiration from a song. I'm really big into power metal, and there is a particular band that I'm sure some of y'all have probably heard of, called Glory Hammer, and they are while their music is fantastic, like their themes are all, it's like very like power metal rock opera. So every album they have has this very ridiculous storyline. Their first album is all like high fantasy, and then their second album goes into the future and in space battles with demons and sorcerers and shit. And there's a song called Apocalypse 1992, and it's fantastic. But basically the song is talking about like the last defense of humanity. So all of the human forces are amassing at their fortress at Mars, and then they clash with the mighty sorcerer's demon army. So it already sounds very 40 or Warhammer already.
Legally distinct space opera.
Legally distinct, but there's no like, it's not like Space Marines or anything, but it is like the imagery is very Warhammer. But there was like, from the first time I listened to that song, the second verse just really got to me. And it's like, it starts off with, "At the speed of light, the Dwarven king arrives. With crystal laser battle axe, into the fight he rides."
Well, you can't get any more metal than that.
And then the
unless maybe he was riding some kind of like laser Tyrannosaurus, but I mean.
And then the evil sorcerer jumps in like, "Pathetic dwarves, you are no match for my demon hordes. Let battle commence." And then this chorus joins in with, "It's the rage, the cosmic rage of astral dwarves from Aberdeen. From their minds they will arise and fight. The rage of the dwarves is tonight." And it just keeps repeating that, and it's just such a fucking baller verse, and I just couldn't help but laugh my ass off the first time I heard it. It was
Giga
just
Chad Crystal Laser Axe fucking Dwarf Space King.
just the idea that like the imagery that I had in my head was very much like the Logan Grimnar model from Warhammer 40K, where he's got this fucking just hover sled being pulled by wolves. Only I'm thinking like that exact same model. So just with this Giga Chad dwarf with his bright pink crystal like laser battle axe. So it's like very like Kung Fury almost, with like the hyper neon lights coming off of it, being pulled by these angry fucking goats. Only somehow the goats, while they're running, this thing comes out of hyperspace. So I don't know how the hell it's like flying, but it's just super metal.
Super metal, and I'm here for it.
It's super metal. I am here for it. I've always been a huge fan of dwarves in fantasy fiction, and I was not into the Warhammer hobby when squats were like a usable army, not for real. So and good lord, trying to find squat models now, like legit ones, like first off, good luck. Second of all, you've got to be individually wealthy to be able to amass enough of those pewters to actually make an army. They are ridiculously expensive.
And third, there's some kind of way.
Their appeal has a certain, or their aesthetic has a certain appeal. Let's put it that way.
A certain je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, something I can't quite put my finger into.
But I know it when I see it.
But yeah, so trying to make an army out of the legit models is like near impossible. So I went third party and actually got a bunch of models and back to Kickstarter from Mantic. They have a line called the Forge Fathers, which are all sci-fi dwarves. And while the first renditions of them are not that fantastic looks wise, the second version of them actually look really nice. And I've got a bunch of those, and I'm gonna augment those with some new 3D printable stuff that I got, or will be getting here shortly. But and then I found some of the old the Mark I Land Raiders from Rogue Trader, the really like the short Land Raiders that look like the current Proteus. So I found a couple of those and made some dwarven doors. I found these they're actually like supposed to be coins, 3D printable coins for like tabletop games that all have dwarven iconography on them. I just put them on a Land Raider door and printed them out, and they look super cool. And then when you put like the little dwarf models around it on like this little short stunted tank, like they just aesthetically look really good. But I have not made him yet, but I have an idea for how I want to make this dwarven king. And I've actually got a couple of files, and I know I sound like a broken record when I always go back to 3D printing, but when I have these ridiculous ideas in mind, this is the way that I can make them happen. Because trying to find some of the real models that they may be like based off of is really difficult. Like trying to find one of the old like High King models from Warhammer Fantasy, where you've got like the big dwarf on his throne being carried by like 4 other dudes. Like you can't really. It's really hard to find that model legit nowadays. And that's what I want. Like I want like this big like throne with an angry dwarf with this bright ass laser axe, like standing atop of it. Like and then all of his his honor guard holding it up, all having like big like breacher shields or las guns. Like I think that'd be cool as shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, I mean, that just goes to show, inspirational hits you from literally any source, which is kind of what I was hoping to, really illustrate with this topic.
Oh yeah, like music, the established lore, fan fiction. Like I mean, basically every time you make up fluff for your own army, you're just creating fan fiction with more steps. So the some of the other groups, like the Mournival has done some fluff, or some of the other Australian groups have come out with some of their campaign fluff. A number of the events that we have both run and been to have some fluff that they have created specific for those events. Like, it's okay to like listen to that fluff and try to incorporate your ideas into it, or have it be part of what you want. Like, you can also change it down the line. If you create an army and decide, yeah, you know what, I don't really, the fluff has not grown with the army, you can always go back and change it. Like, there's nothing that like cements you into a decision.
That is
sure.
true.
I mean, and also painting decisions too. It's just paint. If you change your mind later, you can always just paint over it.
That is also a true statement. But like, there's no like, if you paint it up and it looks the way you want it to look, but like you're not a big fan of the names you've given your guys, or their origin story, like you can always go back and make changes. But like, that's the beautiful part about this hobby, is like, it is meant to be a creative outlet that lets you create from a lot of different angles. So you can create something that is a part of the hobby, but doesn't even like have models associated with it yet. Like, you can build this entire immaculate backstory, an entire, you can create an entire system that other people can explore without ever even building an army for it, and that can become inspiration for other people.
Yeah, like a buddy of ours from elsewhere in Virginia that we always, or at least I always run into at Nova. He commissions all of his armies to be painted just because he's a dad. He works. He's like, I ain't got time for this shit. Like, I've got the money, but I don't have the time. So here, just paint this for me. And where he channels his creative energy on that is, and you may have seen this if you've been to Nova or have seen pictures of Nova or anything, but this motherfucker has gotten versatile terrain like nameplates and put one on every single Astartes in his army, and has a full binder of the lore for his army with like fucking like baseball card style bio like sheets for every single model in the army.
Yep. And he's one of the nicest guys that you can like end up having a game with too. If you're talking about who I think you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about Chase.
Yeah,
that's
what I thought.
I mean, I don't have a problem naming him, because I mean, it's like it's all praise and a compliment, but I just was keeping it broad. Just
terrible kisser, but aside from that, everything about him is great. But no, he comes in, rocks up with this just this immaculate lore, and like that's cool. Like, that takes it to a step that you don't see a lot of people doing that, or you don't see people going through with it, even if they theory craft and have like this huge backstory in their head. Very rarely does it turn into something tangible outside of maybe the army that they're building. And it's there for anyone who's just interested in learning about the backstory of his army. He'll be glad to talk to you about it too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it just goes to show you, just like Eric was saying, like, inspiration can literally come from any and all angles, and that's totally fine. Like, when it comes to this hobby, like, you should be free to kind of express yourself how you want to, and let your army showcase itself however which way you want to. Like, there is no reason why you can't have an army of any shape or color. Like, there are some there's some armies that really lend themselves to it better, I feel. Like we were saying, like the Black Shields and the militia really let you flex that creative muscle in different ways. There are some purists amongst the community that would say that, like, if you're going to play Ultramarines, you have to play them in a very certain way. You have to showcase them in a certain way. But ultimately, it's your hobby, it's your models, it's your money, and time.
So that's a
do what's fun and cool to you.
Yeah, when it comes to building your army or anything, and your fluff, there is no wrong answer. Whether you are doing something that is based on something that's in universe has happened, or making your own shit. However you want to paint your guys, with whatever timeline scheme you want, with whatever armor mark you want, it's all up to you.
Agreed.
Yep. And every legion had access to everything. So if you want to build fucking World Eaters bikers, or you want to build a fucking White Scars armored company, go right on ahead. Nobody is stopping you. And that is 100% something that you can fit into the fluff if that's what you want to make.
Yep. I mean, the truth is, you will always find people who will want to debate you, or tell you that maybe what you're doing is not like by the book correct, and I'm like doing finger quotes when I say that, but like ultimately you can justify nearly every decision you want to make in some way, shape, or form, like in the fluff, like in the established canon, and for the situations where you can't, like, it's mine. I'm making the story. I'm making this army the way I want to represent it, and that's an acceptable answer too. And it's fine to disagree with people, and debate a little bit, but like, there's no reason to be cruel or antagonistic about it either. Like, we're all here just trying to be creative and have fun.
Yeah, in the end, it's your dudes that you went and spent more money than you should have on. Someone doesn't like it. They can always politely kick rocks.
I mean, I think that depends on the source, on the paying more than you should have.
No, that's true.
We can't all be shouting princes like you, Eric. Okay.
Can't all have sugar daddies.
On your 200-foot mega yacht lounging in the Caribbean, we can all be like you.
You can only dream.
You're
often do.
Captain of the ferry to Whore Island.
That's not a real
That's
place.
Not a real
is
place.
As far as you're aware.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. I was thinking about Whore Island.
My wife legally requires me to disavow Whore Island.
But yeah, I mean, I think that about does it. I mean, unless anybody's got some closing remarks, I think we've had a pretty good, different set of.
I'll just real quick, while we're kind of closing out, like, I will say that even us having some of the conversations that we've had in the past few weeks, offhand, things that we've talked about, like, even those conversations can spark ingenuity. Like, it can spark just that one idea that ultimately leads to either building a brand new army or adding on to something you have, just to give it a little bit of diversity and flair, like that. And that's really cool to have too, like, because I never would have thought of taking power lances on anything until we started talking about it, like, back and forth. I was like, there's probably some ways I could do that and it make it look really cool.
Yeah, and how many of us are using Recon Marines now? I know at least one is.
At least I am. Yep, and with plans to build a combat squad in a Storm Eagle to use in the Blood Angels. So.
Yeah, like those conversations can lead you down some really crazy rabbit holes, and like that's cool too. And so, and like, even if something ends up like you build something or put something on the table and it doesn't work, that's fine. Like, like, it is okay to not have an optimal unit choice. Like, you don't always have to win every single game for it to be a fun and exciting and thematic game.
Well, I can give you an example of just the conversations kind of leading to Army. Like, you were talking about, you did your dwarves there. I looked at it and like, that's really cool. And when I was making my militia, and I happened to have at the time the Grom Brindle Tech Priest came out.
Oh yeah.
So I wanted a tech priest, and I'm like, well, if I have a tech priest as a dwarf in an army full of women, it just looks like a bad harem anime. Or good one, depending on what your tastes are. I mean, if you're into that, you're into that. But
interspecies reviewers, like.
I mean, Ron Jeremy is a dwarf, and he's had a long career, but little
He
man.
also got arrested.
All things good and bad must come to an end. But not supporting Ron Jeremy, but just pointing it out. Anyways, off topic. Back to what I was saying.
Sorry.
Is so I ended up grabbing some of those mantic dwarves and I used them as like I made a squad of like a 20-man squad of dwarves that I use as in the army a guard for that particular dwarven tech priest. Like that's his things. He came and he brought some dudes and brought some tech and keeps the army running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you've expanded your militia army a couple times to kind of include different things that you just like, I think that's cool, and I want to make that fit into my army fluff, so here's how we're going to change things up.
It's an evolving fluff. It's not a. I think that we touched on that. The evolving fluff is good. I've seen people do it even as simply as just like putting a battle mark because they went to an event.
Yeah, or like today, I had
Sure.
that assault marine absolutely like put in more work than I had any right to expect out of him. So he's absolutely getting some kind of battle honor added onto his armor somewhere.
Yeah, hell yeah, that's what it's all about, man.
So yeah, I mean, if anybody else out there has cool army ideas that they want to share with us, feel free. Leave it as a comment on one of our social media posts or email us in at Argel Talk Podcast. That's ARGELTALK podcast at gmail.com. And just let us know if you've got an idea for an army and you just really don't know where to take it. You can send that in too. Maybe we can help workshop that for you. Help keep it off the ground.
We would love to hear more from the studio audience and get some conversation going.
And even if you think our ideas are completely stupid and full of shit, maybe it'll spark enough ingenuity in yourself to be able to take the project in the direction you want to go. And that goes for painting and hobby advice too. Like, man, I really want to build this character, but I don't really know where to go or like where to start with builds or with a paint scheme or something. Happy to work with you on that too. So just let us know. We are here to serve.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
But I think that we've had a good productive conversation. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to all of our listeners. Really want to hear from you. But otherwise, had a great night. Really appreciate it, and we'll get this out as quick as possible, and we'll be back here in another week with yet another episode of Argel Talk.
Yep. So we're gonna end it here before we make things any worse.
Gum dumpster. Sorry. I've been holding it in.
See you next time, guys.